Great, so welcome to this demo. I'm going to show you Supplier Connect in 5 minutes. I'm going to start off with the supplier experience and then we'll move on to the client side. So when a supplier logs into Supplier Connect that you can see in front of you, they're keen to know what is the status of my invoices and were they paid according to my expectations. So they can browse through the database if they want, or they can come to the personal assistant and ask questions about the data without having even to go there. So we got some FAQs on the right here. One is, when is an invoice going to be paid? A classic question by a supplier. So if I click that, the chatbot says, which invoice number are you looking for? I can type in an invoice number and it goes into the database and comes back and says that that invoice was already paid on this specific date. So I can click on that invoice number and go straight to the invoice details and see if it was paid according to my expectations. Now, sometimes when a supplier comes in Supplier Connect, they can't actually find their invoice in the system. So they're free to look around, use the filters, use the search, and it's not here. It may be because the invoice had an error or it was rejected. So we capture all of those in this little tab here. But if it really isn't in the system, what they're able to do is to come across to the first thing they can do, which is to raise what we call a missing invoice inquiry. So this is where the supplier says, where's my invoice? It's not in the system. So they come to this grid, click on the big purple button, and they fill out a form that gets sent to the client that says, where is this invoice? They attach a copy of the invoice, they send all the details, and then it goes through to the client. But we're going to imagine that the supplier does find their invoice. So they look through the database here, and let's take one down here. So they look at this invoice, and what they're going to be doing is checking the payment details and deductions and things like that. So all of the details are on the right-hand side. We've got payment details, deductions, promotions. If there are any documents, it's all going to be here. And then what the supplier is going to do is maybe they think, well, I need to talk to the client about this invoice. Maybe it was paid late. So what they can do is they can start a discussion about the invoice. So if I say, why was this paid late? They can send that, they can send that over to the client. They need to give a category to give a heads up to the client what it's about. And then they've started a discussion on this invoice. And as I said, it gets assigned to the right person on the client side. Or what they might want to do is say, this wasn't paid according to my expectations, so I'm going to add a dispute. And they have to fill out a form that the client has customized. And it means that every dispute is exactly how the client wants it, in the format they want it, and with the appropriate documents and things like that. Now, the other thing that happens is sometimes the client, when reviewing the disputes, will actually come back to the supplier and say, I need more documentation and things like that. So there's a big task on the supplier homepage for the supplier to click on this link and go through all the questions that the client is asking them. Let's come to this first one right here. The client has looked at my dispute and said, actually, I've attached the wrong documents. So what I can do as a supplier is I can update the dispute very easily, or go and look at the dispute while I'm here. And then I can respond to that question, and then my job is done. Okay. Right, what I'm going to do now is jump across to the client side. So what we've seen is the supplier sending kind of queries to the client. What the client's going to be doing is working through their queues and responding to the questions and things like that. So the first one is the disputes, this task up here on the left-hand side. As a client, I can come to my list of disputes that I need to review, and I can take action in bulk if I want to. So I may filter it to all the disputes under a certain amount, and I might approve or deny as I go. But I'm going to jump to the first one, and I'm going to look at the dispute. All the details are on the right-hand side, like you'd expect. And as a client, I can change my status. I can assign it to someone else. I can send a message back to the supplier and assign it back to them if I'm not happy with the dispute and it needs more information or something like that. And then when I'm ready, I'm able to approve or deny. So if I approve it, then I have to fill out a form and say the reason why I'm approving it. Or if I'm denying it, I have to say why I'm denying it. And I can even add a little optional message to the supplier as I go. Jumping back to the homepage, the second type of query was the missing invoice inquiry that I showed you. So on these inquiries, you can't just make a yes or no decision. As a client, what you're going to be doing is looking at each of the invoices in the inquiry and deciding what to do with it. So there's only one invoice in this inquiry, and I'll say, yeah, that one's invalid, for a particular reason. And then what I'll do is I'll say complete review, and I'm done. I've now processed that missing invoice inquiry. And then finally, I'm going to be getting questions from the supplier. Hopefully they're good questions because the chatbot will be able to respond to the supplier, and all the data's in the system anyway. But any questions that I do get through from the supplier, I can see them in a nice grid here, everything that's assigned to me, what status it is. And what I can do is I can even respond in bulk if I need to, if there are particular questions that are kind of similar or the same, or I can jump into a question, look at all the details, take any action on the transaction, and then respond when I'm ready.